On September 8, 2025, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a landmark decision that sent shockwaves through Los Angeles and across the nation. By lifting a ban on aggressive immigration enforcement, the court opened the door for a dramatic escalation in federal immigration activity within the city. This ruling allows Immigration and Customs Enforcement, along with Border Patrol agents, to resume roving patrols throughout Los Angeles neighborhoods. Patrols that had been halted for months due to legal challenges. These patrols empower agents to stop, question, and even detain individuals they suspect of being undocumented immigrants, often without needing a warrant or clear evidence. Critics argue that this gives law enforcement sweeping powers to act on little more than suspicion. At the heart of the legal battle is the Fourth Amendment, which protects against unreasonable searches and seizures. Civil rights groups say these tactics violate fundamental constitutional rights and set a dangerous precedent for law enforcement overreach. The American Civil Liberties Union, along with other advocacy organizations, has argued forcefully that these patrols amount to unconstitutional racial profiling, unfairly targeting people based on their appearance or language. Previously, a lower federal court had blocked the patrols, citing concerns about civil liberties and the risk of discrimination. That decision was seen as a victory for immigrant communities and their allies. But the Supreme Court's conservative majority reversed that ruling, offering little explanation for their decision and leaving many questions unanswered about the future of immigration enforcement. In a brief opinion, Justice Brett Kavanaugh suggested that ethnicity could be considered a factor in making stops, a statement that has alarmed civil rights advocates and legal scholars alike. This suggestion has sparked widespread fears that the ruling effectively legalizes racial profiling, making it easier for law enforcement to target people simply because of how they look or the language they speak. In a passionate dissent, Justice Sonia Sotomayor warned that the decision gives federal agents broad authority to target anyone who appears Latino or speaks Spanish, undermining the civil liberties of millions and eroding trust in law enforcement. The ruling has exposed deep divisions in American society over how to balance the need for immigration enforcement with the protection of individual rights and freedoms. The debate is far from over. For millions of residents in Los Angeles, this Supreme Court decision marks the beginning of a new era, one filled with fear, uncertainty, and a renewed struggle to defend civil rights in the face of aggressive enforcement tactics. The Supreme Court's decision has immediate, profound effects on daily life in Los Angeles. The ruling has sent shockwaves through the city, altering the fabric of its diverse communities. Immigrant communities, documented and undocumented, now face the threat of being stopped or detained simply for going about their day. This has created an atmosphere of anxiety and uncertainty, where even routine activities are fraught with fear. Even U.S. citizens and legal residents of Latino descent fear being targeted based on appearance or accent. The decision has blurred the lines of safety, making everyone feel vulnerable. Parents hesitate to send kids to school or seek medical care, and workers must choose between earning a living and risking detention. The decision has forced families to rethink their daily routines and priorities. This climate of fear drives people into the shadows, eroding trust in law enforcement and public institutions. The sense of community is being replaced by a sense of isolation and mistrust. Civil rights advocates warn that using ethnicity as a factor is racial profiling, making millions feel under suspicion. They argue that this decision undermines the principles of equality and justice. Families are forced to make contingency plans, like arranging guardianship for children in case of detention. These are difficult conversations that no family should have to endure. For many, everyday activities have become calculated risks, fundamentally altering their sense of safety and belonging. The decision has cast a long shadow over the lives of countless individuals, changing the way they interact with the world around them. California's leaders and civil rights groups swiftly condemned the Supreme Court's decision, calling it a direct threat to the state's core values of diversity and inclusion. The ruling sent shockwaves through communities across California, where many see the decision as a setback for civil rights and social justice. Governor Newsom and Attorney General Bonta stood united at a press conference, vowing to fight what they described as discriminatory federal overreach. They emphasized California's commitment to protecting vulnerable communities and promised to use every legal tool available to challenge the ruling. LA Mayor Karen Bass called the ruling un-American, arguing that it targets people based on their appearance and undermines the city's long-standing values of fairness and equality. She urged residents to stand together in solidarity and resist policies that promote division. Civil rights groups like the ACLU and United Farm Workers warned that the decision could greenlight racial profiling and put millions of immigrants and people of color at greater risk of discrimination. They expressed deep concern about the potential for increased fear and mistrust in immigrant communities. In response, these organizations pledged to continue their legal battles and expand support services for those affected. They are organizing workshops, providing legal aid, and mobilizing volunteers to ensure that families know their rights and have access to resources. In stark contrast, the Trump administration and its supporters celebrated the Supreme Court's decision, hailing it as a major victory for law enforcement and border security. They argue that the ruling will help uphold the rule of law and strengthen national security. The sharp divide between state and federal officials highlights the deep polarization over immigration policy in America today. Heated debates have erupted at every level of government, from city councils to the halls of Congress, reflecting the nation's ongoing struggle to find common ground. As protests and rallies continue to grow, the ruling's real-world consequences have galvanized both supporters and opponents, setting the stage for a prolonged and passionate battle over the future of immigration policy in the United States. The Supreme Court's ruling is temporary. The underlying lawsuit against roving patrols continues. A federal court in LA will soon hear detailed arguments and could halt the patrols again if constitutional violations are proven. The ACLU plans to present evidence of racial profiling and disproportionate impact on Latino residents. No matter the outcome, appeals are likely, possibly returning the case to the Supreme Court. This legal fight is part of a broader national clash over immigration enforcement, with LA as a key battleground. The Department of Homeland Security is already planning similar operations elsewhere, making this case a national precedent. The outcome will shape federal immigration enforcement far beyond California. Shifting to education, the National Assessment of Educational Progress, the nation's report card, released new data this week. NAEP is the gold standard for measuring what American students know in subjects like math, reading, and science. Unlike state tests, NAEP provides a consistent nationwide benchmark for student achievement. The results inform education policy, funding, and debates about curriculum and teacher training. They also highlight achievement gaps between different demographic groups, revealing issues of equity. The latest report, based on early 2024 tests, offers a crucial snapshot before recent policy changes. These scores are more than numbers. They reflect the skills of a generation entering college and the workforce. The findings are a vital indicator of the nation's future prospects. The latest Nations Report Card reveals troubling declines in student achievement, especially among older students. 8th grade science scores have dropped, threatening the future STEM pipeline. 12th grade math and reading scores have also fallen, continuing a decade-long downward trend. Many high school seniors now lack the skills needed for college or well-paying jobs. The lowest-performing students are at historic lows, widening achievement gaps. These declines are not minor fluctuations. They signal systemic problems worsened by the pandemic. The pattern spans multiple subjects and grades, demanding urgent action from educators and policymakers. Without intervention, another generation risks being left behind. Experts are alarmed not just by declining scores, but by growing inequality in education. The lowest-performing students, often from low-income families or with special needs, are falling further behind. This increases the risk of dropping out, unemployment, and continued poverty. The gap between high and low performers signals a less equitable system and threatens the nation's workforce. Colleges may see more students needing remedial courses, straining resources, and lowering graduation rates. The trends suggest a student's background is becoming a stronger predictor of success, eroding equal opportunity. Education is supposed to be the great equalizer. These results challenge that promise. The urgent question: how do we reverse these trends and ensure every child can succeed? Declining test scores must be viewed alongside recent shifts in education policy. The Trump administration has cut the Department of Education, reducing federal oversight and support. These cuts threaten the very agency that produces the nation's report card, raising concerns about future data quality. Proponents of deregulation argue for innovation and school choice, but critics fear growing inequities. Without strong federal support, achievement gaps could widen further. The debate over the federal role in education is now more intense than ever. The latest NAEP scores serve as a baseline for measuring the impact of new policies. The future of millions of students and the nation's educational progress hangs in the balance. At first glance, immigration raids and declining test scores seem unrelated, but together they reveal a nation at a crossroads. Both stories center on equity, opportunity, and the role of government in people's lives. The immigration decision challenges our commitment to fairness and civil rights. The education report questions whether we're preparing all students for the future. These issues affect everyone, not just those directly involved. They show where our society is falling short and demand that we hold leaders accountable. Whether it's a worker in LA or a student in the Midwest, these stories define the kind of nation we are and hope to become. Understanding and engaging with these challenges is essential for our collective future.